to start the So welcome everybody to the webinar. We are live on Facebook also. We have viewers watching this on Facebook Live. Today's webinar, we're going to focus on sustainable areas, transforming our next generation, both urban and rural, which are equally important areas together. We will introduce our prominent speakers, guest speakers for this webinar shortly. But before that, let me share our initiative of Guru Nanak Dev Global University of Dallas in US. Our essentially vision, so proud to kind of share that we are starting up a university under the name of Guru Nanak Dev Ji in Dallas, Texas. The vision is to transform students into global leaders through the power of inspired learning and self-development for positive social impact. The university is not launched yet. It is planned to be launched next year. But we are essentially reaching out to everybody in different modes and forms. This webinar itself is one of the modes where we are reaching out and telling about what our goals are. Along with the webinar, we also have a journal. Essentially, all the content from the webinar and the technical papers are kind of folded into a journal. So we had a webinar on mental health few months back. So volume 2, mental wellness matters, nurturing minds and empowering lives is available on Amazon. This is our volume 2. The content of this webinar as well as other technical papers will be also part of future journal coming up. Along with this, as I had mentioned, the university opening ceremony date is already set, which is on June 20th next year. We are conducting a Guru Nanak Dev Global Convention starting on June 20th, with the day one being the inaugural and empowering wellness. You can see the different sessions that are planned already for next year. Session day 2 of the convention is going to be a technology day. We were going to talk about semiconductor, big data, energy, food, sustainable cities on the day 2 of the convention. Day 3 is collaboration and climate. And these 3 days will be kind of, we already have registrations that are happening from participants globally. So we encourage you to join us. Welcome. You can take a picture of the screen, a scan to go to the website, or just go to our website, gndgu.com, which essentially is Guru Nanak Dev Global University. So let's start our webinar. I'm going to start off with introducing Mr. G.S. Gill, former managing director of CIDCO Navi Mumbai. He has 4 decades of experience in both government and private sectors, leaving an incredible mark on various domains, be it urban development, housing, transport, medical education, ports, mining. Throughout his illustrious career, Mr. Gill has held numerous roles within the government. Over 80% of his responsibility has been focused on urban development and administration, infrastructure planning and execution, and policy and governance. Mr. Gill collaborated with industrial houses in India. His contributions in smart city, housing, education, and infrastructure is notable. So without any further delay, Mr. Gill, floor is all yours. Sir, you're on mute.
Audible now?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
Good, good. Okay. I think we can continue with the video on,
Yes,
but
sir.
if the network, the connectivity issues come up, then I will switch it off. Thanks, Baljit, for calling me to this and also giving a brief introduction about the Guru Nanak Dev Global University. I wish you all the best in your endeavors. And I'm sure as a serial entrepreneur, you will make it also a great success and it will be a great contribution to the social sector, which is really required. Now, coming to the topic which we are going to talk about today is you have asked me to speak on imperative of sustainable urban growth. This very wide subject, it can hardly be overstressed that future is urbanization, future is urban. And the rural will only be feeding into the urban in various ways. It has been already doing it, but that connection between the urban and rural is going to be even thinner because the main produce of the rural areas, which was the agro-based, it may now even be grown into the laboratories. And so it will not be a surprise that after a few years, we'll not have this concept of rural economy and have the urban economy, but that's a distant view. Let me just say for your audience that we will talk about this topic in two different segments. One will be the sustainable per se, and second will be the how is it applied to the urbanization. The sustainability, as you all know, has gained an recent eminence due to the disasters. Let's say it. If there were no disasters, nobody will think about sustainability. Everybody was taking it for granted. We had been burning the fossil fuels at ever increased speed. So it is only the hurricanes and landslides and river captures which have really got us to focus on this subject. So in a way, we should be thankful to the God for giving a early warning, and it's time that we should do it. Now, what sustainability is, I think the most famous definition, as everybody knows, is the Brundtland Commission the definition in 1987, that we should use the natural resources so responsibility that while meeting our own needs, we should not deprive the future generation of meeting their own. Now, there are various dimensions to this particular definition. There is basically there is an attempt to refocus the issue on energy, because energy is the major component of unsustainability. Firstly, because it is not limitless, particularly the fossil fuels are not limitless, they are going to be exhausted sooner or later. And secondly, when you use them, they produce a lot of pollution in the whole thing. So I will focus basically as energy, if it is taken care of, that can lead to about 70–80% solving of the sustainability issues. It's there has been an international efforts to ensure this sustainability, one of which has gone into various series, which you must have known. Committee of Parties, which is called a COP. And the most COP declarations have been the COP Kyoto Declaration, which was held, and of course COP Paris also happened, which unfortunately the US president later turned on it, but which is their national issue. So all these things are contributing to adding to the sustainability efforts of the various organizations. So that is what I will say. What are these, things which are causing this unsustainable questions, particularly from the energy point of view, and then energy causing impacting the climate, which then leads to all kind of disasters. So there is a sequence which is there is another organization which is called the International Panel on IPCC, International Panel on Climate Change. So all these organizations are doing their works. But we have to understand that everybody, not only the large industrial houses or large, the energy producers are causing it. It's everybody is doing it. All of us are producing carbon dioxide. All of us are producing nitrous oxide. We are all producing chlorofluorocarbons through our air conditioners, and we are producing also the hydrofluorocarbons. So almost everybody is contributing to this in a small way, and everybody can contribute to solve the problem also. So the first will be that we should try to control this. And there is a statistic which says that very recent that about 50% of the climate effect is caused by the improper use of energy. Production is beside, but improper. Are we using the energy only when it is required, or we are taking it for granted because it is so affordable? And now the governments are, competing with each other to make it free. The latest is, the decisions that we should give it free to that. So these are some of the things which need to be focused on. Second, according to that, estimates is 30% comes from transport, which again is energy, and 20% is caused by other, maybe the housing and other things, which are again energy. So basically, the sustainability focuses on energy. And if we are able to tame this, if we are able to channelize our use of it, it will be very good for all of us. Though no fun in blaming the big countries, which they are historically, of course, everybody knows that their contribution to the greenhouse gases has been tremendous. And they have, just the three nations, US, China, and Russia, have contributed about 70% of the carbon dioxide emissions over a long period. That means almost since the Industrial Revolution, that is 1789 to 2021. And that has not abated. Their contribution continues. And that is why we came up with the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities. Everybody has a responsibility, but developed countries have more there. So that much about the sustainability. Now let's talk about the urbanization. Urban cities have traditionally been considered as the engines of growth because they're place where the surplus is produced in many sectors. Rural produces surplus in only one factor, which is the dairy and milk and all those kind of things, and grains and all. But urban produces surplus in almost everything. And it is the major contributor to the GDP of any country. Already 56% of the persons on this earth are living in cities. And it is expected that if the present trend of growth continues, we will be having about 2/3 of the people living in urban cities. So you imagine where will the cities go, particularly the metropolis in the developing countries, which is really high. Now, in urbanization, there are hierarchies of cities. One is, it's all migration dependent. In fact, everything in this thing is like when we were learning in the college, we heard about a queue theory in almost every aspect of life. Like in housing, you move from a smaller house to a higher house, and maybe to a Bangalore, to the destination. Similarly, in the urban, the migration is from the village to the nearest town, from town to the next bigger town, ultimately the metropolis. And there's no wonder that the metropolis are growing at such a fast rate, and they are not going to cease to grow. So the focus has to be on how do we handle migration, urbanization at each level. And I read one very interesting article some time back, and that the problem of cities is the small towns. We ignore them, so people move from there to the next, from there to the next, and there to the next. So then cluster comes. Of course, it has its own advantages of agglomeration of economy and all, but the effect on the environment which the urbanization causes are huge. Another aspect which I think we need to be considered is, does the urbanization give option of good life and productive life to everybody? to my mind, it's not true, because and many of the UN reports and also the World Development Report says that inequality in the urban areas is much higher than the inequality in the rural areas. Only thing is here, everybody is slightly better off than their rural counterparts, but that kind of inequality persists, and maybe that also is one of the reasons, because people who can afford are not willing to curtail on their needs. So they don't want to cut down on energy. They may like to put an extra AC or extra, run an AC on. So that first is that social issue of urbanization, which must be mitigated by policy measures and other things. Then environmental, we have already raised, because the energy consumption is highest in this. Of course, the cities also produce the surplus, which is used. Then the economic benefits. It's not new that there's a global shift towards urbanization. The urbanization has been always there. In fact, if you look at our own old civilizations, the urbanization was very much there, and it started from there, because basically the urban areas generate surplus. So that, I think, broadly, I would like to say that why is it important? Why is the urban sustainability is important? Why the urban sustainability is even more important? So I think I will rest at that, and maybe we can intervene later on whenever there is need. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gill. Amazing insights. We have several questions for you in the Q&A session. So our next guest speaker is Nanak Goyal, who has been the founder and CTO, technology leader, and innovator. She is currently involved in rolling out a futuristic technology at Fortune 500 company, a visionary technology leader and innovator who has been involved in IoT, Internet of Things, and artificial intelligence startups. Nanaka's interests extend beyond the tech world. She is a passionate advocate of sustainable living. Without further delays, Nanaka, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Baljeet. Let me share my screen. I have a short deck to share. Please let me know when you're able to see it.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, wonderful. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Nanak Goyal, and it's just a pleasure to be here with you all. And Baljeet, thank you for your kind words as introduction. So I'm not going to go too much deeper into my background. Just to summarize that I've been a technologist pretty much all of my adult life. And it's ranging from startups to Fortune 500 companies and heavily in the software development field. Now, the topic that I'm here for today is a topic that generates a lot of passion in me. It's something which I connect very deeply in my heart. And it ignites a sense of hope, a sense of mission, and a hope that we can create a more green and sustainable world. Like Mr. Gill was touching up on several different things, greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide, etc. I care a whole lot about that as well. And he was right. All these climate calamities that we have been dealing with, wildfires and hurricanes and all of that, it's a warning sign for us. And it wakes us up to this topic. So you will see in this presentation that how, when you put the three powerhouse technologies together, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and blockchain, you can create a very transparent and efficient solution to serve this very deep cause for humanity, stopping and reversing the climate change. So for this topic, I represent the two Silicon Valley startup companies, NZT Work and Decarbon. I am on their board of advisors, and they are building a solution with the mission to accelerate the global transition towards a sustainable future by enabling collaboration between people and businesses alike. Their vision is that everyone involved will have equal access to the technology, to the means, and they will have motivation to contribute towards a greener and sustainable planet. All right, so let me see. All right. Many regulatory and voluntary organizations in the world are like United Nations Environmental Program. They are working very hard and putting several measures in place for the climate concerns. And one such means of neutralizing carbon emissions is called carbon credits. So at this point, I would like to show you a short video explaining what carbon credits are and how they work, and then we'll go a little bit deeper into the presentation.
Let us break down for you how this all works. Every time an organization uses a resource that relies on burning fossil fuels, it creates carbon emissions, also known as a carbon footprint. Everybody has a carbon footprint. But when these emissions enter the atmosphere, they accelerate climate change, bringing, among other things, more extreme weather. Thankfully, the plummeting costs of low carbon technologies and more resource efficient practices mean that many organizations are reducing their footprints, becoming more resilient, and saving on energy expenditure. But reducing emissions is challenging, something that doesn't happen overnight. With our present systems of energy and land use, preventing any carbon dioxide emissions is not currently possible for most organizations. This is where carbon credits come in. Buying carbon credits compensates for the unavoidable emissions you create today by financing projects that reduce or absorb carbon emissions anywhere in the world. Carbon credits increase the health and prosperity of communities around the world and combat climate change by financing projects that reduce the need to burn fossil fuels or draw greenhouse gases directly out of the air. Accreditations from internationally recognized standards give you the assurance that the projects producing your credits deliver the positive environmental and social impacts they set out to achieve. Moreover, your credits help finance projects that would not otherwise happen. So as well as offsetting your emissions, you are also supporting more sustainable forms of growth. How good is that?
Hey, so I hope you understand how carbon credits work now. One more term that we need to understand here is net zero. What net zero means is for every molecule of carbon dioxide or greenhouse gases that we produce, we absorb one molecule back so that we keep the net emissions zero. Okay, so carbon markets. So there are two ways these carbon credits are traded currently. One is the mandatory or regulatory carbon market. And this is where different companies in a given energy or in a given sector are given a cap. So it's like an upper limit or maximum carbon dioxide they can be emitting. So if they go beyond that cap, they would have to purchase carbon credits from the market. There could be other companies out there that are emitting less than their allowed limit. So they would be in the market willing to trade or sell their carbon credits to the other company. And hence the term trade. We also call it cap and trade. So you see a note below, Tesla, because they make electric cars and there's no emission from the cars, they end up always having an immense access of carbon credits with them. And they make a huge revenue out of it. Just this year, they're getting close to making $3 billion just by selling their carbon credits. So these mandatory or regulatory markets are pretty mature, and there are many checks and balances in place already. Now, there's another kind of market called voluntary carbon market. This is where people like you and I, or smaller companies or smaller businesses, they can create carbon reduction projects, like creating a solar energy farm or a windmill farm or reforestation. So they will create that project and they will claim that it's going to reduce that much amount of carbon dioxide emission. Those projects will be listed on the voluntary carbon market, and the companies that need carbon credit can also go to voluntary market for purchasing those credits and be able to meet their emission goals. So voluntary carbon market has many problems. Many of the times the projects that are listed there are pretty scandalous. They could be scams, just, they just somehow make it to the system. So there is a lot of skepticism among the buyers into buying credits from the voluntary market. So let's look at how a carbon credit flows through a voluntary market to understand, some of the challenges that exist. Okay, so life of a carbon credit in a voluntary market. Let's say you are a project designer who has solar panels on your roof, or you drive an electric vehicle or something. So you want to monetize on that asset. So you want to put this out there in the carbon market and be able to make some money out of it. So the way it flows is you will more than likely engage with some independent advisory firm, those that understand the life cycle of the carbon market, the intricacies that are involved in it. They will help you understand, actually quantify the emission reductions that you will be making. They will help you build project plans, create project baselines, and other sort of documentation that is required by these accredited the third-party standard organizations like VERA and Gold Standard, etc. So after a very expensive and lengthy process, you are able to register your project on the voluntary market. And this is when it gets into the hands of these accredited organizations. They go through their own process called MRV, monitoring, reporting, and verification. So by monitoring that project and actually validating that the emissions that you're claiming you will reduce is actually getting reduced, then they have to report on those findings and then go through this cycle a few times. And let me also say that there are multiple parties involved in that middle cycle as well. There are reporters, there are standard certifiers, there are independent auditors, and then there are multiple cycles. They go through all of this. So after another lengthy process, you get to a stage where your project is certified, and now it's ready to be put on the market so that the buyers can actually purchase the credits from you. So buyers, like I said, are skeptical about voluntary carbon market. So they may want to do their own due diligence. There is a mistrust in that community out there. So that elongates the process again. There might be other intermediaries involved in helping understand that. So eventually, when they're ready to buy it, they will buy those carbon credit certificates from the market, and the funds are distributed. The funds have to first go through all the intermediaries. The transaction fees have to be paid out, and finally, the project developer, which is yourself or me, I will eventually get hold of those funds for the carbon credits that I sold. And the final thing, which is very, very important to prevent double spending and other mistrust from the carbon credit, is that that particular carbon credit has to be retired. So for all of these, if I had shown you all the steps, you would see there are about 18 or so steps involved in the process. And there are about 7 intermediaries. So which I think is an overkill. So if this is the carbon credit market, how does technology help? What if I can tell you that if we use the right kind of technology, it's just a simple, fully automated 4-step process. A project developer will install an IoT measurement kit, and that kit will create tamper-proof, authentic data of carbon reduction. So there's no messing around with that data. Once that data is collected, that carbon project can be listed on a blockchain trading platform, carbon credit trading platform. Once it's listed, with the immutability and the transparency and security that blockchain provides, there is no tampering throughout the process. Once it's listed, the buyers can come in, they can understand the project through self-service. They can choose to buy the project, and the funds will be dispensed directly to the buyer. No intermediaries involved, no scam or scandals, right there. So once the carbon credit is sold, we can have smart contracts built into blockchain, which will take the carbon credit token out of circulation and retire it. So through and through a seamless process enabled by technology. And through all of this process, as you see at the bottom, artificial intelligence will be used to optimize these operations, to enhance the user experience, to run predictive analytics, or providing more guidance to the project developer or the buyers. So artificial intelligence is playing a part in every step of the way in creating this decentralized and high value verified carbon credit tokens. Now let's see how this, so this is like a general flow of how technology can help. Let's see how NZT Work, the company that I represent, they are building this solution. Wherever you see a Z, that represents their presence in that step. So we just saw that businesses that generate emission, like airlines or whoever, they may need to buy carbon credits, right? And so you, as a project developer, like I said, may want to provide clean energy, and you may own an electric car. So you plug into the NZT Work system. There's an app you will install. This app will suggest you measures to generate more clean energy or other means of living more sustainably. And like you heard from the previous speaker, that we all have energy, carbon footprint. We all emit greenhouse gases. So you will be getting suggestions on what you can do. And all of these energy savings are done directly. You don't really need the power grid infrastructure to calculate the emissions that you're making and to calculate the reductions in those emissions. So eventually you buy an energy IoT sensor from them. It's shown in that picture on top. This energy sensor plugs seamlessly into the energy meters that exist in your house today, the one that measures how much electricity you use. So once it's plugged in, it immediately and in real time starts measuring the carbon emission reduction for you. It'll batch those data points and then send it over to a blockchain network, like we saw. So these emission reductions will be tracked on the blockchain network, like we already talked about. And in NZT Work case, we call that blockchain network MetaCloud. It's an immutable, decentralized network of computers where your data cannot be tampered with. Once it's in there, it's in there. That's the whole beauty of blockchain. So these emission reductions are tracked on NZT Work blockchain network. The blockchain algorithms will calculate the corresponding number of carbon credits that should be associated with the amount of reduction you are posting. And then they will tokenize it and put it on the blockchain market for the buyers. And then finally at step 6, the buyers will have their own app to connect to the MetaCloud, and they will be able to purchase the carbon credit tokens, or in short CCTs, directly off of the app and disperse the step funds to you. Finally, there will be apps that will let you track your emissions, track your earnings from this entire project, and it will have AI optimized dashboards for operations, data management, and analytics. So that's the end-to-end flow, as you can see, with the end-to-end solution that NZT Work is providing. So in essence, the idea is that everyone will be able to contribute seamlessly in this ecosystem. You might be contributing as a data provider, as a homeowner who is recording the data of carbon emission reductions and posting that data. You could be contributing as a data validator a person who is hosting these nodes which form the blockchain network, or you will be the CCT consumer, the businesses who is trying to buy those credits to offset their emissions. So everyone can seamlessly get plugged into this system and get rewarded for the system. So you feel empowered that you are a part of the system. You feel rewarded for being a part of the system, you know. Well, you can earn rewards by doing simple things like swapping your light bulbs with more energy efficient ones, or by turning your air conditioning down. Or, you know, in future, maybe if you're grabbing a bike and there are IoT sensors on your bike, you can actually earn rewards for just doing that. So this builds that ecosystem of trust and motivation where everyone feels inspired to do it voluntarily rather than being forced into doing it. So that's MetaCloud for you. And finally, I think we need to go a little bit more deeper into how blockchain rewarding work in a different sense. We talked a whole lot about carbon credit. And if you're saving the carbon emissions, then you earn some rewards, which is the step 3. But you can also earn rewards by hosting the MetaCloud nodes that I was talking about, for example. I have purchased the node myself, and you can plug it into the system, use a private VPN to connect to the NZT work, and just within an instant, you are a part of a robust decentralized data center yourself. But currently, that data center is being used for carbon tracking and calculation of the carbon credit tokens, but eventually it can be used for n number of things. So there is a dual reward system here. You earn the reward called NZT. This is like a cryptocurrency you earn for hosting, and then you also earn the rewards for saving the carbon emissions, which is called CCT. And well, there is a whole lot in this topic, and there are many references that you can refer to, but in this webinar, we only have time for so much. So I'm going to take a pause here and just conclude that we all need to work together. Each one of us have to work together to create a green and sustainable world. And technology is up and coming and providing us resources that we can very easily and seamlessly integrate with to go towards that future. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, Manika. It's amazing. While you were talking, Manika, I came up with the phrase, I am building carbon emissions-free world. I for IoT, A for artificial intelligence, B for blockchain. So using all the 3 key elements of building an ecosystem. So I am building a carbon emission-free world.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. That's very creative.
So thank you. I can suggest that if you have any questions, you can put it in the chat box. We will come to the Q&A sessions. So let's go to the next. I will be talking about the smart growth strategies and actions for small towns and rural areas. So we have compiled a bunch of ideas. In fact, Mr. Gill touched on the small towns. We often ignore small towns in planning. So what we have done is kind of put the key elements and also given examples how cities globally are embracing new technologies for small towns and rural areas. Starting off with sustainable infrastructure. Broadband connectivity is the key. So if you look at Estonia's rural areas, they have really kind of built an extensive broadband coverage for their rural areas. Satellite imaging, which could help with a lot of different applications coming forward. Going forward is green energy. If we look at Germany, how they have implemented microgrids and energy storage could be added value in the journey of sustainable infrastructure. Efficient transportation. Netherlands is a great example how they have done public transportation, looking at smart traffic management, electric bicycles, how they've put together an infrastructure for that. Number two, ideas around how to preserve natural and cultural assets that are in small towns and rural areas. So Japan is a great example how they have been using IoTs in agriculture, also digital farming platforms that are being deployed over there. Looking at historical preservation, Italy is a great example. And use of virtual reality tours, 3D scanning technologies could be used to create replicas of historical artifacts when we're looking at. Then coming to open spaces, we see a lot of open spaces in our small towns and rural areas. So how can we utilize that? Costa Rica is a great example where they've converted into parks, into ecotourism industry. Now coming to economic diversification, really Finland is a great example how this could create startups and entrepreneurs, online incubators, crowdfunding platforms are utilized as a great example in that. Workforce development is key. Switzerland, vocational education and training programs is something to look at, where we can see how agriculture and hospitality programs are kind of combined together to focus on rural and small towns. Looking at tourism promotion, New Zealand, Pure New Zealand campaign, tourism apps, eco-friendly lodging, these are areas that ideas that could be considered, technologies around that. Coming to housing and community development, affordable housing, this kind of in fact also touches on the urban development, also prefab construction, smart home technologies could be looked at. Smart infrastructure coming again into the world of IoT, use of technology in water management, green building materials are the technologies that could be looked at. Singapore is a great example when we talk about green infrastructure. Community engagement is key. Australia has great examples of how they're really kind of engaged rural communities in decision-making processes. Community mobile apps, online town hall meetings, these are good ways to engage residents in decision-making processes. Now let's come to the fifth area is regional collaboration. Somehow looking at shared services. Maine, which is a state in USA, is a great example in the rural areas how they have created shared emergency services. Technologies to look here is cloud-based collaboration tools, unified communication platforms that could be deployed in small towns and rural areas. Sweden is again a great example, looking at the GIS and big data combined together, looking at collaboration. We shouldn't forget about, to enable all of these, grants are needed. In fact, Smart City Missions of India is a great example how to enable technologies for smart cities. There are over 100 cities that are being developed under smart city grant programs by the government. So utilize of blockchain, digital grant application systems will enable that. How do we measure and adapt? data-driven decision making is key. UK is a good example where there's a lot of good best practices that we can look at. Technologies to look at is data analytics, predictive analytics that could be used for looking at historical data. Feedback loop is essential. South Africa has a lot of good best practices that we can look at. Community feedback apps, social listening tools could be utilized for a feedback loop in there. Long-term mission is key. Best practices could be looked at. Sweden's Vision 2030 plan, looking at long-term sustainable development goals is key. There's a lot of good best practices in that. Technologies to consider is scenario planning softwares available, digital master plans is must. So these are some of the ideas that we have put together. Now I'll pause here. There are a lot of questions that came in. I'm going to request our guest speakers on that. So if you have any questions, you can put in the chat box, but there are a lot of questions that came in with the registration. So I'm going to start off with Mr. Gill. Sir, first question here is, what is the primary goal of sustainable urban development and why it is important?
1 minute, let me just. Am I audible? I'm not able to put my.
Sure, no problem, sir. We can,
it's on now.
Okay.
You can hear me? Yeah, I think, yes, like any other area, the objective and primary goal, you may call it, is to make efficient use of the resources. Now, traditionally, we have been, must have studied in economics, all of that there is a land capital and there is labor. Land capital and labor are the three elements which really make the productivity go up. But of late, given the emphasis on sustainable development, the environment has also been added to it. So far, we have been taking in the capitalist thinking environment as a given thing, air as a given thing, water as a given thing, and what you put in the air is also free. So that kind of concept was there. But if we can put that as one of the essential assets of humankind, either in rural or in cities, more so in cities, because as I said, the concentration of population is going to be in the cities. Therefore, that is what should be the prime objective of the city residents, the city governments, and all other stakeholders who are into the city ecosystem. That should be the basically, as I said in the beginning, you have to meet your own needs without compromising the ability of the coming generations to meet theirs. So that should be basically the objective. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is, what do you see as economic advantages to sustainable urban development?
Well, as I said in the the earlier thing, Maliji, is that we have been taking environment as a no cost and free kind of thing. If we build that into it, that itself is an economic advantage. So the whole economic system has to take cognizance of the fact that there's a fourth factor of production, which has been silently contributing to the economic growth, and that is the environment. So if we really incorporate it into it, the whole pricing system, the production systems, and then of course the all things will change. And to my mind, that change in the economic thought is the biggest contribution which the environmental consciousness and can put in this.
Excellent. Next one, Mr. Gill, is what is the driving force that the global shift towards urbanization? You talked about small towns, people moving from small towns to the cities. How can it be managed sustainably?
I think we should not be working against the natural process. Migration has set in from rural to the urban, and it is going to continue. So there is no point in trying to control it or trying to reverse it, as there are some advocates of growth who say, why the cities? As I said, the cities are the engines of growth. They produce surplus in all aspects. So therefore, rather than curtailing their ability to meet their obligations, let's enhance their abilities. And that should be the beginning. Why do people come to cities? Employment, basic thing. Living conditions, the quality of life, if you take away the money, is not that good as maybe in the rural areas, but still they are able to eat. So I think that's the main. And then one other thing is the social, constraints, which may be a positive factor, also a negative factor. Sociologists, in fact, are talking about the anonymity which is created in the urban ecosystem is harmful for the society as a whole. But it also has its own advantages because people are able to pursue their interests. They are able to excel in what they really can excel in. So those are some of the really advantages which we can see with a growing urbanization.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. Nanakaji, over to you. How can artificial intelligence revolutionize the carbon credit ecosystem? I know you talked about it. Maybe you can summarize it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so as you can see throughout the flow of that sustainable transaction from the start to end, AI is going to play a role in each and every step. AI is going to be important for calculating the accuracy of the measurement, making sure the measurements are not tampered with, and we can run more data analytics on it for future and do some predictive analytics on that. It's going to automate a whole lot of complex calculations that are involved, and we don't have to have a manual calculative process like you saw in the manual flow of carbon credit. So that's where AI is going to be helpful for, and just even to optimize the blockchain operations. The blockchain, once it's nothing but a decentralized network. It's a computer which is distributed throughout the world, right? So to make that operation more optimized and efficient, that's also where you need artificial intelligence.
Oh, excellent. The next one is, what role does blockchain play in ensuring transparency and trust in carbon credit transactions? I know you talked about it. Maybe you can summarize this also.
Yeah. Well, a blockchain is the backbone of the whole thing, right? It is the one that makes the transactions transparent and secure and immutable. And the other aspect which people need to understand about blockchain is the trustless system. And by trustless, what it means is you don't have to trust a central authority for validating something that you're doing. For example, for validating your carbon credit emissions or such. You can build smart contracts into the blockchain, and once it's in there, it is in there forever. You cannot tamper with it. So having that tamper-proof data, the immutability in the system, and that assurance that there is no scandal going on when things are running on a blockchain, that's a huge advantage of having blockchain in providing the transparency of carbon credit transactions.
Excellent. In fact, the next question is how can we synergize AI, IoT, and blockchain? You, in fact, gave a real example how the company that you are involved in. So that example is amazing. Is this solution available in the market? Can people kind of go to the website that you gave and get this going?
Yes, the short answer is yes. There are pre-order. They are taking the pre-orders. Like I mentioned, I have already purchased a node. So I'm going to be a blockchain node owner very soon. So they're taking the pre-orders for that. They're also taking the pre-orders for IoT measurement kits that are going to plug into your energy meters. And the apps are already in place. In fact, if we had time, then I was going to demo it on my cell phone. There are apps to guide you through energy efficient means at home, and also showing you what your emission numbers are today, and eventually when you plug into their ecosystem, how it's getting better. So the solution is available and it will be fully functioning by the end of this year.
Excellent. I'm going to switch to Mr. Gill. Mr. Gill, you have been a person that I always look up to on whichever facets, be it urban, rural, or small town. So there are two questions that came up, and with your current activities, I know amazing new technology deployment that you're doing in rural areas in Punjab. How can small towns effectively preserve their natural and cultural assets? What are your suggestions, ideas?
I think by sheer socio and economic relations, the small towns are really the extensions of the villages. And there is a lot of interdependence between the two. I remember growing up in the rural areas, and the hub town was the main where everybody will go, where the doctors are known, where the advocates are known, where the your artiyas are sitting. So I think small towns have to continue to play that role in an effective manner. And only thing is that maybe the new technologies be able to make those relationships stronger. So that seems to be my view on the small towns. But they will continue to be getting people in and getting people out. That is for sure, because there is a natural flow of populations.
Looking at agriculture and animal feeds, you're doing amazing work. So what are your ideas? In fact, maybe you can share a little bit about your projects that you're doing on animal feed. How do farmers kind of get into diversification in their journey that they're doing? So maybe you can shed some light on that.
Well, it's a fact that not only Punjab, but the entire North India, the people have got into their limited crop cycles. In Punjab, Haryana, it is predominantly wheat and paddy cycle. But in some other states, there is a little bit of variation of coarse grains. And Government of India has, as you know, recently taken up a very ambitious program, starting the millets as a major crop. And that, I think, is the reason why I should. There are very severe environmental impacts of a paddy and wheat cycle. It's first of all, it is the pollution which it creates. Second is the overuse utilization of water. Third is the degradation of soil over a period of time. So you have to put more fertilizers every year. So that cycle needs to be broken. And Government of India is taking steps in that direction. And I hope they will be useful. Regarding the other activities, which can be added to the agriculture, we have literally abandoned them. I mean, it was shocking to know that the number of the milk cattle in the villages have gone down over the year. So people have started abandoning dairy as a source of income additionally. The fisheries is an additional source of income. The beekeeping is another source of income. So all these have to be started, but it cannot be said then, no, you stop agriculture and move to dairy. That cannot, because all these fields are so interrelated. You brought out the example of feed, People often complain that we got the best Jersey cows, and they gave good milk for a few years and then they went down the same look. Why? Because first, we are not able to give them the feed which they need. They are used to certain kind of, the protein, certain kind of fiber, certain kind of nutritional elements, which we don't provide. And we have the same, so It's not me, actually, it's my son who was working with Citibank. Then he thought, okay, why not get back into the entrepreneurship mode and set up this unit where you will be getting the quality food for the animals. I was joking with him one day. No harm in telling. I said, we made food for cats. We made shelf food for dogs. And they don't give us anything except loyalty, which of course is valuable. And we don't do anything for the, the cows and buffaloes and goats who give us our livelihood, literally, the physical livelihood. So there's a need, there's a tremendous gap, and I hope our project is the first, and one day we want to see our cattle food on the shelves of the malls where it can be picked. That is our final ambition.
Excellent.
Thank you. Can I ask one question to Ms. Menka Goyal?
Andy, sure, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, it was an excellent presentation, Menka ji. I only want to raise one issue, that carbon credit has been often coming into a little bit of disrepute, in the sense that people have been saying that you are picking up the pollution from somewhere and putting it up somewhere else. You are really not solving the problem. How will the carbon credit in the long run lead to net zero, if it is only going to be a replacement from one to the other place?
Yeah, so that's actually a very good question. That's a great question. I had so many slides, and then Baljit only gave me 15 minutes for this. So there is actually a slide which shows you that what you are sharing is called double counting or leakage. So the leakage could be you're stopping it here, but then you're increasing it elsewhere, right? So you move manufacturing from US to China, and now it's gone to China. Or it could be double counting, that the company that's reducing in one country is also claiming credit, and the company that's actually purchasing is also claiming a credit. So all of these factors, they exist because like I said, voluntary carbon market, it doesn't have too many checks and balances. It doesn't have specific measuring equipment and parties that can validate that what is being claimed is actually true. And that's exactly where we need this kind of solution in technology, where we are using the measuring kits or other kind of monitoring tools to make sure that it's actually happening the way it's happening, and it's actually reducing that emission. And once that carbon credit is used for reducing a certain emission, it cannot be claimed elsewhere. So a technological ecosystem has to be put in place, which prevents the problems that you exactly mentioned, Mr. Gill. And and hopefully we can have more chances to talk, and I should be able to share a whole lot of details on how this project is helping.
I was thinking,
Thank you very much.
Have a session itself on carbon credit in future. So it's an amazing area. So with that, I want to thank both our guest speakers, Mr. Gill and Nanak Goyalji, for your valuable insights. This recording of this will be available on Guru Nanak Dev Global University website, as along with the other webinars that we have been hosting. I would like to thank everybody, all our participants, for the valuable time in learning journey that we have created. Thank you, Mr. Gill. Thank you, Nanak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.